Greetings, dearly beloved. This is Trey, aka @Taboo Tarot Reader. This channel is Experiential Energy Anatomy, and I am delighted to offer to the Introverse today a new vlog series I am titling Occult Astrology, in which we dive deep into the hidden, not so obvious aspects that each planetary body represents within every single human being's psyche. So, if this is something that interests you, welcome. Hey, all my deep divers. In today's Occult Astrology blog post, we will be diving deep into the mystery of the planet Venus. So, Venus in its star point cycle is currently in the evening star phase, in which for 250 days, Venus is visible in the western night skies as an evening star. And Venus will be in this phase up until January 3rd, 2023. In the Crowley-Thoth Tarot deck, this phase of the Venus star point cycle is represented by the Two of Cups, Deacon or Minor Arcana. Okay, love. So get a look at this image in order to intuitively connect with and interpret this energy. So part of my intention with launching this Occult Astrology vlog series is to not only raise awareness for students of astrology and the tarot regarding the occult aspects of these sacred sister sciences, drawing upon sources such as Madame Blavatsky and the Theosophy tradition, Rudolf Steiner and the Anthroposophy tradition, Edgar Cayce, the Sleeping Prophet, and his readings. But my main intention as well is to draw upon ancient non-Western astrological sources, such as the Vedic astrology and Mayan astrology. In particular, in this series, we'll be working with information from the following books: The Fundamentals of Vedic Astrology by Bipin Behari, a fantastic read for any student who is interested in incorporating Vedic astrology into their practice. It's definitely a dense read for a small book, but it has many big ideas that challenge our Western perceptions. And this is why it's so important to incorporate ancient non-Western astrological sources, because they give us a more holistic understanding of astrology across time and space. For astrology really is the oldest human science, the oldest human wisdom system that by some miracle we still have access to. And astrology could be defined as the study of the correlations between the macrocosm and the microcosm. The study of the correlations between the cosmos, the movement or transits of the planets and the stars, and how that manifests as energetic phenomenon here on Earth, the microcosm, within human relations and relationships, within human society and human current and political events. And whilst this information that comes from this book, it may challenge Western students of astrology, it is so important, if you are truly concerned with studying the greatest human mysteries of consciousness, to listen to what the ancients have to say. Why is this? Well, again, astrology, star maps date back to the deepest antiquities of human history. Okay? Even in the Neolithic cave paintings in Europe, on the cave walls. Okay, there's astronomical information being imparted. Since the dawn of time, humans have been curious to know and observe how the transits of the planets and the stars, again, affect life here on Earth. So rather than allowing non-Western astrological sources to contradict Hellenistic Western astrology, they can strengthen astrology as a science. They can help us, again, gain more holistic and accurate understandings of how, when, and why planetary energies can manifest within every single human being's story. In this series, we will also be working primarily with this book, How to Practice Mayan Astrology, a fantastic, fantastic read by Bruce Schofield and Barry C. Orr, who help us understand just a little bit more of the mysterious Mayan cosmology, numerology, and the Mayan day keepers, highly accurate calendars. The ancient Mayans had a level of accuracy within their calendars, within their wisdom system, that is almost divine. It is so impressive that we must give what they have to say some study and some attention, and also validate what they have to say versus just throwing it into the Western intellectual trash bin and saying, well, this is from an ancient non-Western, non-European civilization who have gone extinct. So what can we really learn from them? What could they tell us that we don't already know? I have encountered that closed patriarchal mindset within the highest levels of education, and it is one of the biggest blocks, in my humble opinion, again, to students of the occult, to people who are interested in understanding the mysteries of human consciousness, the mysteries of why we incarnate here on Earth. Okay? And again, the Mayans, even though their civilization is very mysterious to us, even though we know so little about where they got this wisdom, how did they get this wisdom that is seemingly divine? Well, perhaps because in the Vedic literature, the Vedas talk about the great yuga cycles. Okay? And the yugas are these vast cycles of time that are considered descending and ascending golden ages. So, why is this important? Well, the long and the short of it is that if you actually study what the ancient powerhouse civilizations, such as the Mayans, the ancient Vedic civilization, the ancient Egyptian civilization, they all say the same thing, that their civilizations are much, 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 much older than what the colonizers' narrative will allow them to be. In the colonizers' narrative, right, they like to propose a false timeline, a false narrative about the origins of these powerhouse civilizations. And they like to shorten the timeline. That way it fits their narrative, their paradigm. But again, perhaps if we give credence to what these civilizations said, that their civilizations are much, much, much older, have gone through multiple processional cycles, then we can come to respect that, wow, think of all the knowledge that can be gained via observation throughout a civilization's lifetime that lasted as long as these civilizations did, right? Think of just the knowledge, the accumulated knowledge, right? Just feel into that respect, that gratitude for the ancient elevated ancestors when thinking about how young our civilization really is in comparison to theirs. So what is myth and what is truth really? So that being prefaced, if you are still with us, thank you so much. I know for some people they may already be feeling, well, how is this information going to be relevant and applicable for me in my story in the Me Show? Well, I intend and hope that this occult astrology series will be a great interest to people who are, again, concerned with discovering the true nature of the human experience. Also hope this will be of interest to people who understand that astrology is the science of everything, and it explains your fate and your destiny. I also hope that this is of interest to people who study anthropology, feminism, queer theory, and people who are concerned with deconstructing the gender binary that we so blatantly project onto planets and stars, non-human entities. So again, if this is something of interest to you, thank you again so much for being here. Your presence is truly appreciated. Let's dive deep. Okay, in the tarot, Venus is represented by the Empress Major Arcana. And in Hellenistic Western Astrology, Venus is considered or perceived as a feminine archetype. Again, as symbolized by the Empress. And then the gender binary is further enforced, by the Emperor card, which represents the planet Mars, And these two major arcanas, for many people, also represent the divine feminine energy as we understand it, and the divine masculine energy as we understand it. The gender binary is so deeply programmed within people that they say such naive and silly things like women are from Venus and men are from Mars. Which again is ridiculous. These are planets. These are not human beings. Therefore, with that being said, is it possible that there are masculine or androgynous aspects to Venusian energy? And is it possible that there are feminine or androgynous aspects to Martian energy? Because if you are interested in occult astrology, first things first, Madame Blavatsky, the founder of the Theosophy tradition, a high-level and respected psychic during her time period, Madame Blavatsky said that each planet is not just a physical body of matter. Each planet has, just like a human being, a chakra system or a subtle body, an etheric body. And this subtle body can be likened to its sphere of influence or the energy reserve that we as human beings can tap into within our psyches. So if you only perceive a Venus as feminine, you will only experience the feminine aspects of Venus in your psyche. If you only perceive a Mars as masculine, you will only perceive and experience the masculine aspects of Martian energy within your conscious experience, within your story. Okay? And why is this important again? Well, beyond the fact that binaries are for computers, not human beings, and is also one of the biggest spiritual blocks in any initiate's development. The gender binary is a block. I'm going to repeat that. The gender binary is a blockage. And it is not reflective of the actual energetic phenomenon that is going on when we tune into each planet's sphere of influence. Okay? Now, for some people, this may be very triggering to what they have learned. Because so many people in the West have come to associate the feminine archetype, the divine feminine with Venus, and the divine masculine with Mars. But what's interesting is that the Mayans, in particular, perceived of Venus as a masculine malefic. So the script is completely flipped. And that, again, is very triggering and challenging to people, which is why they don't study the Mayan astrology. But I just want to say this. I am not here to destroy or discredit the idea or understanding of Venus as a feminine archetype. We will dive deep into it for sure. Because across times and cultures, right, Venus has been depicted as a feminine archetype. Freya, right, Aphrodite, Ishtar, Isis, Lakshmi. Okay? All of these goddess archetypes in these various cultures is related to Venusian energy. So again, I'm not here to make any blanket statements that Venus is not inherently feminine. Obviously, these cultures' perceptions give that idea some weight and credence. Okay? But what my intention here is, again, is to expand our capacities to perceive that, again, a planet is not just feminine nor just masculine. that archetype, right? It has both aspects and also an androgynous aspect as well. And this is completely lacking from so many people's filters of perceptions, and it's blocking us from understanding the deeper levels of meaning and the deeper levels of the energetic phenomenon, again, that these planets connect to within our psyche. So if you're still with me, thank you so much. I know this is, again, going to be very triggering for certain people. But how can we expand and grow if we're not challenged, yes? So, let's get into it, yes? Madame Blavatsky, again, the founder of Theosophy, okay? And I'm drawing this information as well from the psychic Gigi Young. You can check out her YouTube channel and also the YouTube channel, The Dark Journalist. Both of these are fantastic resources for those who are interested in studying the occult and occult astrology. Links in the description box below. Shout out to Dark Journalist and Miss Gigi Young. Mwah. Thank you so much for your work. Okay, so Madame Blavatsky considered Venus as Earth's higher octave twin. Now this is very interesting to me because it is implying a few things. One, it's implying the as above, so below principle. Okay, so if you can perceive of the symbol of Venus, right, which is a circle with a downward pointing cross, right? Okay, Madame Blavatsky said that downward pointing cross was the cross of matter. Okay, so you can imagine Venus' sphere or Venus's energy body, not the physical planet Venus, but again, Venus's energy or subtle body is vibrating up here in a lighter or less dense frequency of energy one could even say the fifth dimension or beyond. Okay, and that Earth is down here vibrating in a more dense frequency. And if Venus is Earth's higher octave twin, then that means that whatever is going on in Venus by the mirror principle is being mirrored in the Earth plane. Okay? So that's the first thing to understand, is this mirroring effect between the sphere of influence of Venus and Earth, and that they're intimately connected. Venus's etheric body is intimately connected to Gaia's etheric body. Okay? And the cross of matter is, as a symbol, attempting to help us to understand a little bit more about the alchemical process called conjunctio, the divine marriage. Okay, the union between spirit and matter. So Venus energy in the occult astrology is considered to have a spiritualizing effect. It, again, is vibrating in a sphere that's very ethereal. And Madame Blavatsky says something very interesting that Gigi Young drew attention to, and I feel this is very important, that during the Yuga cycles, okay, again, these vast cycles of time that come from the Vedic literature, which describe descending and ascending golden ages of human civilization. What is interesting is that Madame Blavatsky said that during these Yuga cycles, okay, Venus and Earth's energetic spheres overlap. So you can just imagine here this very simple visualization technique. Venus is descending as Earth is ascending. And throughout the Yugas, the precessional equinox, or the great year as Plato called it, Earth ascends and Venus descends. And these periods of overlap in which Venusian energy is bathing the Earth, those were considered the golden ages in the Yugas. Those were considered the times when Venusian energy was elevating the average human awareness, the average person's consciousness, okay, to an elevated state in order to perceive the spiritual hidden realms. This is so interesting, yes? So, in the occult astrology, Venusian energy is, again, something that initiates or turns on what are called the siddhis in Vedic literature, the spiritual powers of perception. It turns on our capacities to perceive more. Venus energy is, maybe even one could say, what activates, okay, the pituitary and pineal glands. It activates the mysterious endocrine system. It is something, again, that I feel is inherently related to the chakras, because each chakra is associated with a physical gland in the human body. So this brings us to the next interesting point that Madame Blavatsky said. Madame Blavatsky said that Venus' energy body also acts as a prism or an intermediary filter for the sun's pure white light, which creates what? The rainbow. Which, again, so this is implying to us that Venus' spiritual wisdom has gifted us the chakra system itself. Okay, Venus energy gives life color. Okay, Venus energy awakens our senses. So just let that information sit and settle for a hot minute. So this is a nice transition into reading a little bit from the fundamentals of Vedic astrology about Venus, okay? Because there are some parallels between the Vedic interpretation of Venus and the Hellenistic or Western interpretation of Venus. And again, for skeptics of astrology who like to nitpick and say that contradictions prove that astrology is not worthy of merit or study, okay? No, it's not necessarily a contradiction. It's a different perception or interpretation of this energy. Because we must understand that everything is relative to the observer. The theory of relativity. Okay? Given all the differences and circumstances on the Earth in different time periods. Right? The Earth in the ancient world was a completely different planet. Right? The atmospheric pressure was different. The gravity was different. The weather was different. Right? The magnetic poles may have been different. The electromagnetic field may have been different. There are so many factors that we don't understand that could contribute to the differences in perceptions about planetary energies. So again, my intention with this series is to show that the differences seemingly between the Western, Vedic, and Mayan perceptions of planetary energies are really superficial, and at their core, at their depth, they're just describing the same phenomenon in different ways, okay, via different filters. And we must honor diversity rather than denounce it and use it as the again, like, humans need to be able to hold paradoxes and contradictions in their psyches anyway if they're going to understand the convoluted universe. So again, those skeptics out there that just use these seeming differences and say they're contradictions and astrology is just a bunch of bullshit, new age mumbo jumbo, you know, those people have no respect. Those people have no respect for the ancient elevated ancestors who gifted us these sacred sciences in order to help us wake up. So, let's see. What did the ancient Vedic sages have to say about Venus? The cosmic passion. The desire nature of the cosmic man is represented by Venus. The planet is often linked with Kamarupa, which is the vehicle of desires and passions. The Egyptians associate the Khou, or animal soul, with Venus, and Hindu Brahmanical literature relates the planet to Vijnanamaya Kosha or Manomaya Kosha, which are the seats of egotism and avidya, or illusion. So the koshas in the Vedic worldview are simply another word for the spheres or the different dimensions of human consciousness. But all such associations are merely indirect pointers to the cosmic principle of attraction, which results in procreative activity and the unfoldment of music, harmony, appreciation, and the urge to unite. Considered a female skilled in the art of lovemaking, producing the sexual and creative impulse in every human heart. Venus heightens the sensuous nature of man. The passionate urges of Venus are primarily of an intellectual kind, poetic in sensibility, artistic in expression, belonging to the Brahmin caste and pervaded by rajas, or activity. Venus is refined, cultured, sacrificing, and always engaged in activities. Though Venus is classified a female, this is primarily to point out its temperamental disposition which emphasizes sensitivity, creativity, sociability, adaptability, and ethics rather than the passion of lust. Venus is also considered a counselor of the planetary hierarchy. Okay, let's let that information sink and settle. So, what I would like to say first about this passage is, obviously there's a lot of overlap there between the Hellenistic and the Vedic perceptions of Venus as being a feminine archetype. Okay? But I propose the question, dearly beloved, how and why do we come to determine what is feminine and what is masculine? Because, in my humble opinion, femininity and masculinity, the yin to the yang, the electric to the magnetic, has nothing, repeat, nothing to do with physical genitalia. I deeply respect this book. I use it as a cherished resource, obviously. However, with that being said, this book was clearly written by someone raised in a patriarchal culture with patriarchal views about gender. This was clearly someone who was raised in the gender binary. And why do we assume that all those characteristics, right? Sociability, creativity, sacrifice. Why do we consider all those to be feminine and not masculine? And my point is this, is that our associations or perceptions of what is feminine and masculine are completely arbitrary or random. And they're just, for so many people, if you ask them why, well, they're like, well, just because. That's just the way it is. And no, it's not, because these associations or perceptions, they change across time and space. They vary across culture. So, we're not here discussing absolutes. Like, gender is not absolute. It shifts and it changes throughout time. Like, for example, okay, in Europe, during the Enlightenment period, men were the peacocks. Men wore the most fabulous wigs, the most fabulous clothes, right? The most color, right? And that was considered masculine. But now, the script has been completely flipped. And men are expected to dress in the most boring, simple, like corporate way. Like, it's just, and women are expected to be the peacocks in order to what? Gain the toxic male gaze attention. It's also completely arbitrary that still, to this day, in many cultures on this earth, it is very taboo for men to have long hair, and it is very taboo for women to have short hair. Why? Because all humans are capable of growing their hair out long. So my point is this, is that we project our human perceptions of the gender binary onto pretty much everything, but especially in this case, onto the planets. And again, it's silly. It's naive. It's small-minded, really. And we need to think bigger. We need to expand beyond this blockage. And I'm just going to throw out there, okay, for those who, need an example. The Bjork song Venus as a Boy. Mother Bjork, Matriarch Bjork, like a genius. A truly revolutionary artist beyond our times. Bjork is Bjork to me is the alien fairy godmother who has come here from a different dimension to grace us with her wisdom. And her song, Venus as a Boy, is perfectly encapsulating what I'm attempting to say. That song, one of my favorites from Mother Bjork, I feel personally what I interpreted from that song was that Bjork was allowing herself to be attracted to femininity in a man. Bjork was allowing herself to perceive the beauty of Venusian energy manifesting in its masculine or androgynous aspects. And it was a celebration of that flipping of the script, I felt, that whole concept. So again, Venus as a Boy, to me by Bjork, just go listen to it. If all of this intellectual jargon has just triggered the shit out of you and you're, still watching by some miracle, you go listen to Bjork's song, Venus as a Boy, to feel what I'm attempting to impart with words here. Okay? Which leads us now into the Mayans' perception of Venus as a masculine malefic. Again, how interesting that the script is completely flipped when we are studying Mayan astrology. Again, we'll be reading a little bit from this book, okay? And when I read this book, I was definitely thinking of that Bjork song, Venus as a Boy, because for the Mayans, the ancient Mayan daykeepers, Venus was perhaps the most important planetary body after the sun. They gave Venus more importance than the moon. Why is this? Okay? So, Venus's star point cycle for the Mayans was considered an omen. The Mayans did not perceive of Venus energy as lovey-dovey, rainbow cotton candies, and butterflies type of energy. No, they feared the Venus star point cycle. They viewed when Venus became visible as a morning star in the east, they viewed this as an omen. Okay? But underneath this fear was a deep respect for the Venusian star point cycle as a guide to the optimum timing of action and as a time marker. So what does this mean? This means that the Mayan daykeepers advised the political elites of important political events and when to make decisions by the Venus cycle, which includes transitions of political power, when to go to battle, and also when to sacrifice, which again is something that's very difficult for Western minds to comprehend or understand from the ancient world. The Venus star point cycle, therefore, was embedded into several Mayan calendars and was divided into 4 main periods. Okay? Being what? Okay? The inferior conjunction, the morning star phase, the superior conjunction, and the evening star phase. And then you remember that Venus is currently in its evening star phase. And these 4 periods for the ancient Mayans related to the way that human beings functioned in society, participated in society, and related to other humans, which is very similar, perhaps the main similarity between the Western, Vedic, and Mayan interpretations of Venusian energy. Okay. We'll get into it in a bit. I will read a passage about the cosmology of Quetzalcoatl, which is associated with the planet Venus, because it is a story that deals with taboos, sexual energy, morality, and this is again, something that seems to be a commonality when how cultures across time and space have perceived a Venus representing desire, attraction. But beyond the symbolism, again, the Mayan day keepers were obsessive timekeepers. Again, their accuracy is almost divine. It is so impressive. How did they arrive at this wisdom? It deserves our attention. So the Mayan day keepers observed a 584 synodic cycle, a 584 day synodic cycle for Venus, in which again it makes 2 conjunctions with the Sun. During the inferior conjunction, Venus is moving in retrograde motion, i.e., that energy is magnified energetically for us humans. During the inferior conjunction, Venus and the Sun thus pass each other, moving in opposite directions at a movement that increases their angular separation at a rate of 2 degrees per day. The superior conjunction, meanwhile, occurs when Venus is farthest from the Earth, with the Sun positioned between Venus and Earth. Venus and the Sun are now in direct motion at nearly the same speed. So again, remember, right now, Venus is in the evening star phase. So Venus is the most farthest away from Earth right now. Just to give you some context about how that energy may be manifesting in your story. And Venus is currently in Earth sign Capricorn as well, for those who are curious to know. But the Mayans observed that during these 4 phases of Venus' star point cycle, again, there was a lot of what we could say are tower moments from the tarot, or swift and unexpected change, a lot of chaotic energy that was manifesting politically and in society. So in particular, during the 8-day inferior conjunction phase, the Mayan day keepers noticed that impulsive behavior was high in the populace. That creativity was high, sexuality was heightened, people were pushing against social norms and breaking taboos. People were also seemingly taking more risk during this time, and there was a lot of, again, chaotic energy. They noticed and observed that during this conjunction period, heading into the morning star phase, which lasts for 236 days, also known as the heliacal rising, when Venus appears in the east as a morning star. During these first 2 phases, the Mayans, again, they feared this time. They viewed this time as an omen of things to come, and they would expect, downfall of political leaders, or corruption, or power shifts. They also, again, would at this time notice that violent behavior, aggressive behavior was high. And then moving into the 3rd and 4th phases, the superior conjunction, and then the evening star phase, in which Venus is visible for 250 days in the western night skies. What the Mayan day keepers noticed is that during the 3rd and 4th phases, risky behavior seemed to be lowered, or impulsive behavior seemed to be lower. People seemed to be more cautious. The Mayans also associated this period with darkness, and all the themes that we associate with darkness, So why or how is this relevant, you may be asking, in your story, as we're 44 minutes deep? Well, perhaps the Venus star point cycle, perhaps rather than romanticizing this cycle, right? And perhaps rather than projecting our romantic desires for love, remember, onto the Venus star point cycle, perhaps we can take this information again and use it like the way the Mayans did to optimally time our actions and our decisions, especially for people who are business owners or people who are interested in getting a professional path reading with me. I think the Venus star point cycle is very important to understand when is a good time to take risk and when is a good time to be more cautious, okay? And that could be applied as well, of course, to your romantic entanglements, right? But I'm just saying there's so much more to this planet Venus than love, right? Attraction, sexuality. I'm not denying that those aspects are important within the Venus archetype because, again, the Mayan cosmology related to Quetzalcoatl, the creator god, they associated their creator god with Venus. So obviously, there's a lot of importance. They're trying to draw our awareness to the importance of the Venus star point cycle with this story. So let's read a little bit more about what the Mayans had to say about Venus and how they symbolize Venusian energy in story in order to help the populace live in their views, okay, in more alignment with spirit. So, the Maya timed important political events by the cycle of Venus, including changes of leadership. They even used it to calculate the best time for battles and sacrifices. Even though our society perceives warfare and sacrifice to be bloody and uncivilized activities, during ancient times, those actions were actually a ritualized part of civilized life. Consider the possibility that ritualized warfare was perceived by the Maya as a calculated way to vent hostile emotions, necessary actions for the preservation of their culture. In this sense, Venus is the civilizer that regulates the animalistic and destructive urges in humanity. Again, the script has been completely flipped because we often associate in Western astrology those animalistic and destructive impulses with the planet Mars. So how interesting. Continuing on, Mesoamerican astrologers might say that in order to perpetuate civilized social life, humanity needs to ventilate according to this planet's schedule. The meaning of the planet Venus in Mesoamerican astrology differs, at least on the surface, from its meaning in Western and in Vedic astrology. First, Venus in this tradition is male. Most students and practitioners of astrology have learned to see Venus as a feminine symbol, the archetype of the goddess as feminine lover. However, in ancient Mexico, Venus was associated in symbol and myth with the man god Quetzalcoatl, Nahua or Aztec, or Kukulkan. The historic myth of Quetzalcoatl, a legend that entered the Yucatan during the post-classic period, is a story about social ideals, impeccability, fornication, and the fall from grace. Everybody watches The Fall. Everyone loves to watch The Fall, right? Continuing on, the myth speaks of the quest for a higher and purer level of living, and also of human frailty and the sins of the flesh. Some writers who have studied Mesoamerican civilization have linked the Quetzalcoatl myth with the notion of civilization itself, addressing both society's creation as well as its destruction. Others have focused primarily on the historic Toltec rulers who wore the title of Quetzalcoatl. Like the myths of the planetary gods of the ancient Near Eastern and Mediterranean civilizations, the Mexican Quetzalcoatl stories vary somewhat in content, but they do offer some deep insights into the symbolism surrounding Venus. In brief, the myth goes as follows. Prepare yourself, trigger warning, for the faint of heart. There's nothing lovey-dovey about the story. So in brief, the myth goes as follows. Quetzalcoatl was conceived and born miraculously after his mother swallowed a piece of jade, a virgin birth. He eventually assumed kingship of a perfect empire. Over time, he became obsessed with his own ritualistic spiritual practices and lost contact with the real world beyond his city. Meanwhile, strange and socially destabilizing events, some of a sexual nature, began to occur in his kingdom, and the populace began to sense that something was wrong. Let's just pause there. Excuse the interruption. Excuse me, as well. Well, don't you remember when there were no ads on YouTube? Ugh! Those were the good old days. Nostalgia. No sé qué está pasando. No puedo hablar en inglés. Ya no. Okay, let's continue. Gotta get my English back. Okay. Meanwhile, strange and socially destabilizing events, some of a sexual nature, began to occur in his kingdom, and the populace began to sense that something was wrong. One day, evil sorcerers infiltrated Quetzalcoatl's compound and held a mirror to his face. Quetzalcoatl's appearance had been transformed through severe spiritual practices to such a significant degree that he recoiled from the sight of himself. To such a significant degree, again, that he recoiled from the sight of himself and was easily persuaded by the sorcerers to let them beautify him. I'm going to pause and say, repulsion is the shadow of attraction, folks. Continuing on. Later, the sorcerers enticed him to take 5 cups of the alcoholic beverage pulque. Quetzalcoatl downed the pulque and became intoxicated. Dancing followed, and he called for his sister to join him in the wildness of the moment. The next morning, he awoke to find that he had committed sexual sins with his sister, having broken one of the most important moral laws, the taboo against incest. He renounced his throne, left the city, and slowly made his way to the east. Upon his arrival at the seacoast, he sailed to the rising sun on a raft, or in some versions of the myth, built a funeral pyre and immolated himself, or sacrificed himself. At his death in the fire, he became the planet Venus. That information sink and settle for a hot minute. Very interesting, yes? So as we come to the tail end of this Occult Astrology blog, I feel with the Mayans in this story, in this myth about Venus, the birth of Venus, I feel what they are intending to do is not necessarily control human sexuality, the Kundalini energy. What I feel they're intending to do is draw our awareness to the spiritual power of sexual Kundalini energy, and that it is something to be respected and worked with, not prostituted as it is every day in Western civilization. Okay? And this theme of taboos, which the story draws our awareness to, is very interesting as well, in my humble opinion. Because in the ancient world, especially in the ancient Egyptian, pharaonic dynasties, incest was very common. It was something in the royal families, in many civilizations, not just the Egyptians, that was practiced in order to, in their views, keep the bloodline pure. Okay? And legitimize that ruling family's dynasty. So these are themes that, again, can be observed across time and space in many cultures. And what I feel, again, is perhaps the most important walk-away message from the story of Quetzalcoatl, the birth of Venus, from the Mayan cosmology, from the Mayan worldview, is that it is warning us humans. It's a warning, really, about what I sense as spiritual detachment and spiritual ego. And that people who misuse or abuse the siddhis, the subtle powers, that the awakening of the senses, right, for their own self-serving means or reasons, right, the universe, karma will eventually, take care of those people. And it's a warning, I feel, about how are we using the power of sexual energy, because it's inherently spiritual. Okay, sexuality is something that's sacred. Kundalini is a sacred metaphysical energy, and it is represented as a serpent, and Quetzalcoatl is the feathered serpent across Mesoamerican culture. So there's so many connections here, but that was the most interesting point in the story for me, was that Quetzalcoatl became very solitary and detached and lost touch with his populace, the people in his kingdom, who just descended into chaos and sin, as they say. And I'm not here to cast shame or say what is sin and what is not, and what is moral and what is not. That's all relative, again, to the observer. What I am here to say is this. Venus energy, clearly, again, like Madame Blavatsky said, is of a high spiritual vibration. It's of a high spiritual nature. And any initiate along the spiritual path understands, hopefully, that when you actually wake up, when you actually get woke, as the kids say, and the current vibration of Earth, right? It's very risky. It's very risky to wake up. And that energy is of such a high vibration. If it's not guided properly, right? Yoga teaches us this. If the initiate does not have guidance, right? The energy, that vibration will actually destroy them, which is what happened to Quetzalcoatl. So again, this story, it's a deep omen, it's a deep warning to us as humans to have more respect, perhaps, for the archetypal feminine, as well, the power of the archetypal feminine energy, what we label the feminine, right? What is that power, really? Because it's been suppressed in all humans. So that is what I take away from that story about Quetzalcoatl. Again, you will have your own interpretations. Please leave a comment in the comment section below letting me know what you feel about any of the information that I offered to you today, but in particular your interpretation of that story about the birth of Venus, of Quetzalcoatl, as we are an hour deep. So again, if you tune in all the way to the end of this Occult Astrology blog, thank you so much for tuning today. Every single comment, like, share, subscribe, and donation is truly appreciated from the bottom of my heart chakra to yours in order to grow this channel organically. And also, shout out to all the people who are supporting the creative content of this channel. Again, I just am truly appreciative and want to show so much gratitude to every single person who has engaged with my tarot readings, engaged with my content. I recently made a testimony video to, again, show my gratitude to y'all. And also, as a sign of my gratitude during the holiday season, all new patrons who sign up to support my Patreon page will receive a free 15-minute personal tarot reading from yours truly. So if you're interested in exploring all the magical benefits that patrons of this channel receive, link in the description box below, and head over to my Patreon page. And if you like this series, again, I am excited to continue it. Stay tuned. In the next episode of Occult Astrology, we will be diving deep into the mystery of Mars. Yes. Okay, all my beloveds, I'm truly wishing y'all a high vibe new year, right? May 2023 bring all of you auspicious manifestations. May you manifest your true heart's desires. Toodaloo.